Comparing your home phone options is a good idea, especially when you can choose between RevVoice Home Phone and BTC's home phone service. With RevVoice, you get more than 20 free calling features, unlimited local calls, and unlimited calls to any RevVoice customer anywhere. All this for just $9.99 a month. And now, we're proud to introduce our Bahamaland Unlimited Nationwide Calling Plan. You can call any phone on any island at any time for just $5 a month. BTC charges $16.25 for their bare bones home phone service. Plus, you would spend $9 to get the 3 most popular calling features, and another $33 to get some of the other calling features RevVoice gives you for free. When you add it all up, it's pretty clear why there really is no other choice. RevVoice gives you more minutes, more coverage, more calling features, and free installation. All of this for less money. And for a limited time, you can get RevVoice installed in your house for free and save over $200 a year. So, if you're choosing a home phone service, choose RevVoice, the better choice.
Days after he was charged in a magistrate's court, Police Staff Association incumbent Chairman Dwight Smith seeks re-election to that post. Leaders of the Vote No and Vote Yes referendum campaigns respond to the Prime Minister's regrets, what new fee hikes mean for patrons at Atlantis Resort, and the search for a new College of the Bahamas president narrows. We have those stories and much more coming up tonight. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Christina McNeil, and your MB12 starts right now. Thanks for joining us. Police officers headed to the polls on New Providence and Grand Bahama today to cast their votes for a new Police Staff Association executive team. Among the candidates is PSA Chairman Inspector Dwight Smith, whose name remains on the ballot days after he was charged with indecent assault. Nikita DeVoe has more in this report.
We caught up with Smith just after he voted at the Police Staff Association here on Bank Lane. Now, Smith says he's not worried that the recent allegations will affect his chances of being re-elected. Just tell us a little bit about how you feel about your chances despite the incident.
I think my chances are good.
The last time we saw Smith, he was handcuffed, answering to a charge of indecent assault in a magistrate's court last Thursday. Prosecutors alleged that the inspector inappropriately touched a woman and flashed his privates on December 27th last year. He pleaded not guilty to the charge. Smith, who was out on $5,000 bail, says despite the allegations, he's still in good spirits and looking forward to the outcome of the election.
I feel good. I came and do what I have to do is vote for those candidates of my choice. Of course, my name is Mark first. This would be history to see what actually happened at this point in time.
And it seems that supporters were not moved by the allegations either. Several officers who were gathered on Bank Lane cheered as Smith walked by. Others offered him words of encouragement and pledged their continued support of the PSA chairman.
What they say, I stand behind you 100%.
It was initially reported that Smith would not be able to run in this year's elections because he was relieved of his duties following Thursday's charges. Today, he answered to that.
I'm still a member of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. I'm still a pay and dues member. I still pay my contribution of $10 to be in the association, and according as to last I checked, that I'm still a member of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. I'm still under the responsibilities, the discipline that is afforded to any police officer.
The polls opened at 9 this morning and closed at 5 p.m. Polling stations here in New Providence included the PSA office, Kendall G. Elizac's gym, and police headquarters on East Street. In Grand Bahama, the lone polling station was at the PSA office on Mahogany Street in Freeport. According to PSA executive member Sergeant Jerry Josie, 15 sergeants, 5 inspectors including Smith, 29 corporals, and 47 constables are vying for a spot on the PSA. Smith told NB12 today that he doesn't want his situation to distract police officers from the issues. He said he is now solely focused on the election and fighting for the officers.
there's a proposal that we had started with it. I hope that we would be able to bring it through in terms of this agreement with the government and how we look futuristically at police officers when it comes to health insurance, when it comes to salary. All of these stuff that we need to talk about. You know, we still talk about that, but nobody actually sit down with the police yet. How is this going to affect you?
Smith recently threatened to take legal action against the government for compensation on behalf of officers who were placed on 12-hour shifts in response to the high crime rate. About 1,000 police officers were expected to cast their votes today. Results are expected later tonight or early tomorrow morning. Reporting for NB12, I'm Nakia DeVoe.
Well, Prime Minister Perry Christie admits he regrets going to a referendum over the issue of gambling. Christie says he should have just moved to regulate the web shop industry rather than putting it to a vote. Now both sides of the gambling divide are speaking out. Dana Smith reports.
Pastor Lyle Bethel of the Vote No campaign said if the government were to move to regulate the web shop industry, that would be a slap in the face to the voters who opposed the issue in last January's referendum. But Bethel said he is confident Christie will not take that step and commit what he called political suicide.
You heard me say many times, Travis, many times, that the Prime Minister, despite what he's saying, is giving every evidence by the proclamations he would make, by the statements he would make. I said, the Prime Minister doesn't have a horse in the race. He owns a whole derby. And his statements now only would leave the least intelligent of us to conclude that he is now revealing his hand.
In an interview with the Nassau Guardian, Christie admitted he has regrets over last year's gambling referendum. He said, quote, "I ought to have moved immediately to regulate the industry without going to a referendum and to articulate to the people of the country that we were going to have enormous problems in trying to have an environment where it is not regulated." Before the referendum took place, Christie had stressed his government had no horse in the race, and he pledged to enforce the outcome of the opinion poll. However, now nearly a year since the referendum took place, the status quo remains as it relates to web shop operations. Bethel said although the Prime Minister's comments add to the frustration he feels in the aftermath of the referendum, he ultimately is confident the industry will not be regulated.
The Prime Minister, by his lonesome, caused to be called a referendum to find out the opinion of the Bahamian people when it came to gambling. No one put him in a half Nelson. No one broke his arm. No one put a gun to his head. He himself admits he wished he had the courage. And so I believe the Prime Minister will not commit political suicide by having called for a referendum, heard what the people said, and still in the face of that turn around.
But if the government were to move to regulate the industry, Bethel said he would hold the government's feet to the fire. However, Bethel stressed he does not want it to appear the church is fighting with the Prime Minister. He said he wants the government to succeed and asked the country to pray for Christie.
My encouragement is that all of us pray for the Prime Minister, pray that he would courageously grab the reins of governance and that he would rule wisely.
Also responding to the Prime Minister's comments, Philip Galanis of the Vote Yes campaign. Galanis said Christie should be commended for his disclosure and the government should now, quote, do the right thing and regulate the industry.
I think first he should become commended for being bold and strong and brave to say that, because persons tend to, particularly politicians, tend to stick with their positions that they initially take and do not look back and say, you know something, perhaps it was not the right thing to do, or perhaps I made a mistake.
Galanis said although the country missed an opportunity and Christie, quote, ought to have done it in the first place, it's never too late and the government should move to regulate the industry. He also criticized some members of the religious community for their stance on the issue.
The government should now, having regard for all that has transpired since the referendum, do the right thing and legalize and regulate the web shops. I do not see, for example, how the church, and I use the church in quotes, can oppose the regulation and legalization of gambling, of web shops or the web shop operations on the one hand, and on the other hand be completely silent and completely mute to the issue of Paradise Island and Cable Beach, the casinos there. It is hypocritical, it's duplicitous, it is really inconsistent for them to take the position with respect to the foreign operators of gaming businesses and to take a very negative view of domestic operators.
Last year, on January 28th, voters were asked whether they support the regularization and taxation of web shops and the creation of a national lottery. The majority of the voters said no to both questions. Less than 50% of registered voters participated. Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.
Atlantis recently rolling out certain price increases. During a sit-down interview with NB12, Atlantis President and Managing Director George Marcantonis explained those increases. Royston Jones has more.
While admitting that the Bahamas is already a pretty expensive destination, Marcantonis says the increases for valet parking and the one and only Ocean Club golf course came about out of necessity and based on what the hotel's regional and U.S. competitors are charging. Valet parking at Atlantis has gone up by 60%, from $10 to $16. It also costs more to play on the golf course. However, Marcantonis pointed out that the hotel has not increased food and beverage prices in years, and room rates were actually reduced last year.
Every single hotel and resort is increasing their prices, particularly in North America, because frankly, business is back. And when business is back and there's demand, prices go up. And it certainly doesn't hurt our competitiveness because we haven't done anything that's particularly unusual to what the industry is doing. Before we raise prices, we very carefully analyze what our main competitors do.
Marcantonis, who was recently named the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association's Hotelier of the Year, told NB12 the golf course price increased 2 months ago. But any price change at the resort is not arbitrarily done, but after careful and considered research.
Price increases at the resort go along with increases in our costs. Sometimes they go along with what our competition might be doing. And when I say our competition, I don't mean our competition necessarily just in the Bahamas, but also in the United States. But in general, we don't just do random price increases because we think that we're already a pretty expensive destination. And because Atlantis is at the peak of that triangle, we're very cautious about it.
Telling us that changes in room rates and the cost of food and beverage are based on what the competition may be charging, Marcantonis noted that Atlantis is concerned about the implementation of value-added tax within the next 6 months. Having previously expressed a preference for a sales tax, Marcantonis says from the examples in the Caribbean where VAT has been introduced and from what the hotel has been advised, that type of tax system has not been very successful in this region.
You know, I prefer to go with things that are tried and tested. But at the same time, I know that greater minds than I are working on this, and hopefully we will get to an excellent compromise that everyone can live with.
With the government set to implement VAT at a rate of 15% in most cases on July 1st, Marcantonis says although the hotel will remain cautious about any future increases, Atlantis would have no choice but to increase prices when VAT comes about. Reporting for NB12, I'm Royston Jones.